Welcome back, everybody. This is day 3 from Sweet Pea for the Great International Craft Show. Today I want to talk to you about our essentials product, which is our stabilizers and our batting, and how we use them, how we make the choices of how we put the different products into our projects. There's a lot of product out in the market, and we understand that. We've created our own because we were annoyed at the inconsistency of products that we used every day, and when we ordered more, they were different. And so we wanted to try and combat that, so by creating our own. So what is batting and what does batting do? So batting is the fluffy stuff that goes inside our projects. Now you can get thick stuff, you can get spongy stuff, you can get stuff which looks like you can see through it or blow through it, high loft. This is what we call a low loft, so it sort of looks like felt, but it's not. And our product is viscose, so it has an endearing term of feeling like silk, but it's not, it's viscose. So it's a natural product, with a man-made twist to it, of course, and it is stable, so it doesn't stretch, and it's got a scrim inside, and the fibres don't poke through to the outside of your work. Because sometimes when you're actually creating designs, if you're using dark fabrics, sometimes your batting can poke through, and you'll see a sort of whiskers on the front of your work, and you don't want that. So this particular batting we have does not do that. It's low loft, so therefore it's easier to use in the hoop, because in the hoop, embroidery is about building up layers of fabric and stitching. So you're often stitching on top of stitching. So we want it to have a low loft, easy to maneuver or easy to trim. So it comes in a big pack, which is what we call our like a queen size pack. So it's 63 by 120 inches. So 1.6 meters by 3 meters, decent size pack. The people that have started using it now, well, we've had it on the market for a few years now, absolutely love it. Now, why we like something soft is because when we use it, let's say looking at our kitty cat runner, we've got. This is not got this, but this was before this product, so therefore it is quite rigid. It is quite rigid, and imagine having a quilt like this. It would be quite heavy and board-like. So what we want is we want something which has got, it's soft and it's flexible and it's got a bit of drape to it. It would sit on a bed beautifully. So for a quilt, this is ideal. And these are individual squares which have been quilted individually and then stitched together. So therefore, having a thin batting or having a fine batting gives us lovely drape. You don't actually see the seams as much as you think you would, because this has been quilted in each block, and it's nice and soft. So therefore, it would be nice to actually have as bedding, as opposed to something a little bit more rigid, which is ideal as a table runner or ideal as a wall hanging. We use for both. And so what determines the amount of flexibility in a product like this is the actual stabilizer that goes in the hoop. So when we do in the hoop projects, like everything else, when we do in the hoop projects, we have our stabilizer, which is inside the hoop. Then we have another layer of batting, and sometimes underneath here we'll have a layer of our bag stiffener, and then that's trimmed back so it's sitting inside that perimeter seam, which is the seam which holds down our fabric. So there's no bulk in the corners or along the seams. That's what makes our product nice and flat, because we take care to make sure that the batting is not included in the seam allowance. Very, very important. Very important to follow those instructions at the beginning of our notes. For the first couple of pages, we get quite explicit instructions about how we want this done. And the suggestions that we make are so that you don't have to deal with or combat with the extra bulk when it comes to joining blocks together, and it makes life a little bit more enjoyable and more manageable. I talked about bag stiffener. Now we created a product which was called our Bag Tex. Now this feels like a cross between felt and a medium cutaway. It's 3 times the weight of a medium cutaway. It's got a little bit of loft to it, and it's got a little bit of structure to it. Still lovely and pliable, but it does give body to a project. And so bag snifter for us is very, very important, because what it does is it lends itself to, I'm just going to show you this for instance. This is a project which we're doing at the moment, which is a bottle carrier. So when the bottle's out, the item stays up by itself. But it's not hard. I can crush it up, but it has a skeleton. It has a spine in it there, which is made up of just a layer of the bag stiffener. When we say bag stiffener, it can be used for lots of things. And so, like, this is just a bottle carrier, part of our bag group, which is this technique and class is online, and it's called Take a Break, and it's got a lunchbox and a bottle carrier. And so having some structure even in a handbag, having some structure so as that the shape of the actual handbag stays up by itself, it doesn't collapse. And again, having some stiffener in the edge of that means that it holds its beautiful shape, and when it's being used, the item can stand up by itself. Really, really important that it can do that. Otherwise, it becomes too soft. Even little projects like this little wee tiny little, this is the jumble purse, so even this little project can stay up by itself because it's got some bag stiffener inside it. But the beauty about our bag stiffener is that it doesn't feel that stiff, and it's easy to turn inside out. Because some of the products on the market, and especially the foam-based product, it's near impossible to turn these out easily if you don't have really, really strong hands or massive dexterity. So having something which is going to give you a shape and then allow you to turn the project through is a real advantage. So it's one of those things that you've got to get right in the middle of. Is it too stiff or is it too soft? What's it going to do to your project? If we use say on a project like so, if we used PU or cork, we would probably just put a layer of the bag sniffer in and no batting. Depends on how much detail you want. Like for here, we've got batting on this project because we want the relief of the red work to show the hills and valleys of the stitching, and only batting can actually do that. So we have a combination of both. There is nothing wrong with actually making a test block of a design. So many people just go into it and say, I'm going to do this, and then they're disappointed with the end result. We quite often make a test block to make sure something is going to go right. And if it doesn't go right, we backtrack and make another decision. But making a test block, just a simple test block, can give you an idea of how the actual product is going to feel inside your project. Now, when it comes to testing, our products we designed ourselves, so like we wanted to make sure that we have a test to make sure that it's the same every time it comes in. When we get a new batch, we run up a sample of 9 blocks and put it together, and we make sure that it measures the same length, it's nice and soft. So this was a product we used previously, and it was fine, but we did know that it shrunk, and we wanted to make sure that our products did work so as that they were not going to actually shrink on us. And this has got a lovely soft feeling to it there, but our product that we're using is even softer, so that's what we were looking for. That is what we're looking for. The most important thing for us is consistency. We want to be consistent on what we are delivering as far as our projects and as far as our product goes. So in our range, we do have a tear-away stabilizer. Now, tear-away stabilizers are useful for doing freestanding projects like coasters, or putting behind zips where we need to have the zip closed when we're actually doing the project, and then opening the zip, we need to pull the tear-away behind the zip so as that it's able to go into the project itself. Without having a tear-away, we would need to cut away. I quite often cut a window behind my zip because I like to use medium cutaway, but you do risk cutting the zip tape, and I can't tell you how many times I've done that, but I still seem to do it. Tear-away is a much, much better option for doing those projects. When we suggest a tear-away or a wash-away, we're looking at the easiest avenue for the best result. So that's tear-away. We also have, well, I just talked about light as a feather. Now, light as a feather is our version of mesh, okay? So you can see it's slightly opaque. You can see my hand behind there, just. And so that, with the lovely light batting of the Luscious Loft, gives us the beautiful light quilt, because we don't want it to be crunchy. If we used a medium cutaway inside our quilt blocks, it would be slightly crunchy. We don't want crunchy, we want soft, we want drape. And so our light as a feather is what we use in our quilt blocks. It feels quite papery. When it's washed, it goes lovely and soft, and we're exceptionally excited about the product itself because it doesn't shrink, and it makes for a very, very enjoyable end product. So this is called light as a feather. The reason we like this also is because there's no slashes or dots or holes in it, because that's one of the problems with so you've got little pinholes. One of the problems with some of the very, very light stabilizers is that they're made up like a mesh, and it's very, very easy to stretch them into the hoop. And then once the hoop is relaxed, the fibers or the stitches compact, and they start giving a little bit of shrinkage and wrinkles around elements within our design. This does not do that. It keeps it lovely and flat and gives you a nice finish. So creating the right combinations of products is the ideal. So creating the right mixture of products. So we do have a medium cutaway as well, and that is just a standard 80 GSM cutaway. I think it's 80 GSM. Yes, 80 GSM cutaway. It's a standard weight is a medium cutaway. The most versatile product you can possibly have in your stable of stabilizers. It's the most versatile product. It's one of the things. If you had to choose one, that would be the one I would choose, because it's so versatile. But I do love the lightweight because you can actually do so many things, especially behind flat embroideries, like when you're doing monogramming, etc. So you've got a light piece of stabilizer, which is relatively sheer. It's not going to give you too much shadow. We don't do a lot of standalone embroideries at Sweet Pea. Most of our projects are in the hoop, or in their build up of applique. So therefore, we don't do a lot of standalones. We do a few, but not a lot. So we don't really specialize in garments or embroideries for garments. We like our bag stabilizer, or our bag tex, because it's not spongy and it's not foamy, so therefore we can use all our forms of embroidery using this product without having to make any adjustment. Because if you use bag foams, etc., now you need to generally make an adjustment to your underlay of the embroidery, and that was really, really important. Whereas we don't have to really do that with this, because it's quite happy to take our embroidery as it is. We don't have to do anything special. So whether you use it or whether you don't, the embroidery still turns out the same. There are a few things that I want to talk about when it comes to dealing with stabilizers, is that when we cut a stabilizer and we're using a hoop, we generally would cut our stabilizer so as we're going down the roll. We don't generally cut across the roll, we generally cut down the roll. So when I say cut down the roll, I'm talking about portrait as opposed to landscape. So we generally portrait cut along the roll so as that you get the same grain evenly. Just make a rule in your head that I'm going to be portrait cutting to actually get the right similar grain. There's nothing worse than making up a project like a quilt and you've got some cut this way and some cut that way. You do not find that they will sew together easily. It's really, really as simple as that. Keep them all the same direction. I generally, as a rule, will always cut my stabilizers in bulk at the beginning of a project, so as I've got them all cut, all the same direction, I do not have to worry about it. Also, I try to do the same thing with fabrics, allowing little tiny snippets of fabrics, not so much, but the bigger pieces I try and keep them portrait so as the grains are the same as well. With a lightweight stabilizer like this, it's very important that we do pin our stabilizer along the edge of our hoop to stop the stabilizer falling back into the crack of the hoop. So we just put some of these big pins. They're like a millinery pin or a large quilt pin. You can use T-pins as well, but they're becoming harder to find. T-pins are upholstery pins. So we have 1, 2 here, 1, 2 here. So we got 4 pins on this, but if we had a very long hoop that had very long sides, the sides are always the weakest. They're always the way that the stabilizer is going to fall out through the sides. So we might have 2, 4, we might have 6 pins in a hoop if it's got a long hoop. Keeping your stabilizer in the hoop evenly so it doesn't walk while you are stitching is so important. We get quite a few emails from our customers saying that the registration of their work hasn't completed at the end of the design. And then you look at the photos they send through and you'll find that there's wrinkles in the stabilizer because the stabilizer has been allowed to actually pull into the center of the hoop, which is not what the most desired thing that we want. We want it to stay flat and taut and strong all the way through. So I hope you've picked up a few hints here and there. Whether you use our products or whether you don't, it's important that you keep a consistent control over what products you have. So make sure that you're buying the same product. We love our stabilizers because they are consistent for us. We know what our end results are like and we're not going to get any surprises. That's very, very important to us. Having a batting which is perfect for in the hoop is very pleasing to us as well, because this was one of our main problems prior to having our own products, was that we could not get a consistent weight every single time we ordered. It was such a bane, really, because we would find that we'd have to test. Every new roll we got, we'd have to test, and then you'd find you're halfway through a project, you've got 2 weights of stabilizer or 2 weights of batting out there. It was such a nuisance. Well, listen, thank you for joining me today at the Great International Craft Show. Hope you've learned a little bit. Please feel free to come and have a look at our website, see our lovely projects, and we will see you online again.